Hello, my name is Mark O'Day. I just got here, so um, basically what brought me here, like I said, is a long time ago. My mother had went to her sister's house. My aunt, she used to live in Saturday, and they had I explained it before. It's I don't remember the name of the ceremony they had. They were blessing the needed male babies or something. Um, and it was like some sort of a power was around here somewhere. And my aunt told me that. And she came by and brought me here. It was called Dr. Water back then. And so ever since then, as I grew older, nothing was, I didn't think much of the thing back then, but it popped up back in 2007 when I started to wake up. That's when I decided to come back here. So every year I would come to the powwow, and anyways, here I am. So, yeah. So it's a lot of fun coming here. Great Lowry. I was listening to you this week on the Bumble chat during my working hours, so I would listen, go back to work, go back. It was it's a good experience. I just got here, so I'm really confused here. But like I said, it's very important, the Great Law Recital. I thought we were going to discuss every Wampum, but I guess I'll read it by myself. But, so I read it a couple of times before, so which is a little letting out because I sang last week. So that's about all I have to say for now. I guess I'll be talking to you a little bit more later. Make sure this is better. Oh,
Yeah. Before we move on, just to get the understanding of what is happening, we are in the law recital, and we are going to go over every individual wampum. Right now, we have gone over the creation story. We are going through a process that somebody might think, well, creation story, you're talking about a certain period in time in creation. This right now, what we are discussing, this is after the creation story. This is the in-between times. That's what we're talking about today. This is the in-between times. This is the people's experience. Now, the people's experience of today, we might not see it as the in-between times of the beginning of creation and up until where people started to grow upon the earth. But this right now, this experience, what we are going through in sharing our identities, this is the part of the right after the creation story of the in-between time. So we didn't get yet to the law. We're going to get to we still have to go through the formation of the league. We have to go through the story of Jagusase, the story of the woman who stood on the warpath, which is the most important part of everything. So, just for everybody's understanding, somebody may be wondering, hey, when are we going on, where's the law? We're going over every one. We're just not there yet. Don't forget, like we said, the last time we done this, it was 26 days to do this. We may not understand the first day or the first couple of days. We may think, hey, that's not the creation story, until we get to the end, and then people will see how all of this fits right into place. But also, like what was said, normally how this would be done is there would be 48 female chiefs and 48 male chiefs to do this. So there's a lot of things that are going to be remembered only later, and we'll put them in place. So that's why we can't look at a slice of these however many days we're going to be here and say, okay, yeah, that was specific, just that. It's all part and parcel. It's the whole thing.
Mon nom est Alain Marquis Bergeron. Je suis le petit-fils de Claudina Lafrenière, Marie Boutier, le fils de Jacqueline Marquis Boutier. Et aujourd'hui,
Donc, so he just introduced himself. He gave the name of his grandmother and the name of his mother.
et aujourd'hui, j'ai une pensée pour Madame Desjarlais.
Today I had a thought from Mrs. Desjardins,
Who did not listen, qui n'a pas écouté le curé
who didn't listen to the priest
quand le premier Marquis, un anglophone,
when the first Marquis, who were an Anglophone, that's his last name, is one of his names,
est arrivé à Mansonville
arrived in Mansonville,
et si elle
and if she
avait écouté le curé,
would have listened to the priest,
je ne serais pas ici.
I wouldn't be here.
Donc, mes racines sont aussi bien anglaises que françaises et ça, je ne peux pas le certifier.
So my roots are as much French and English, but I cannot certify it.
Mais j'ai vraiment un profond feeling that it is the truth.
But I have a profound feeling it is the truth.
Pour ça, je remercie la Martielle,
And for this, I thank Sky Woman,
Grand-mère Lune,
Grandmother Moon,
la Mère Terre,
Mother Earth,
pour tout ce qu'elle m'a donné et ce qu'elle nous donne.
for all that they ever gave me and are still giving me.
Je voudrais remercier Marie-Claude
I would like to thank Marie-Claude
pour me permettre de mieux la connaître.
to allow me to know her better.
Parce que on a vécu une enfance très similaire.
Because we had a very similar childhood.
Quand moi, à l'âge de 12 ans, après des années de coups de poing sur la gueule,
When I was 12 years old, after many years of being hit with punch in my face,
not in my face, but in my mother's and father fighting in the house like crazy.
not his own face.
Okay. J'ai eu la chance et l'incroyable privilège que ma mère quand I had this terrible privilege. At that time, I thought she was putting me. Comment je vais l'expliquer en français. Je vais continuer la
I'm
traduction.
going to continue in French.
Quand on s'est retrouvés au palais de justice à l'âge de 13 ans,
When I was 13 years old, we were at the Palais Justice.
courthouse,
Huh?
courthouse.
At the courthouse.
Ma mère, moi je voulais rester avec mon père. Pourquoi je voulais rester avec mon père? Money, power, image.
So they were there for divorce, and he wanted to stay with his father because of money, power, and all of that.
L'image, image.
The image
13-year-old kid.
at 13 years old.
What do you want? You want mobilette, you want scooter, you want horses. Oh, I got all of this. I was a spoiled child. You could not believe how much I was. Un enfant gâté, pourri,
I was spoiled rotten.
aucun sens des responsabilités.
No responsibility. I was not taking any responsibilities.
So why did I want to stay with my father? Because parce que c'est lui qui me donnait tout ce que je voulais.
That's why I wanted to stay with my father, because he was giving me everything that I wanted.
Puis en l'espace de... Parce que le juge allait me demander bientôt who I want to stay with.
So the judge would have asked me soon who I wanted to live with.
How can you let a 13-year-old child decide where should you live? Stupidity. Et ma mère, in the meantime, in about 10 minutes, she convinced me to tell the judge I wanted to stay with him, with her.
So it's his mom that told him.
In 10 minutes, she turned me around and she made me change my mind. I don't know why I did that. Probably saved my life. Même si quand je me suis retrouvé à Montréal avec elle,
Even when I was in Montreal with her,
à l'âge de 14-15 ans,
when I was 14 or 15,
une période de la vie où tu as besoin d'amis, tu as besoin de gang,
it's a time of your life that you need friends, you need a group of people to be with.
je me suis retrouvé seul
I ended up being alone
avec ma mère
with my mother
qui m'aimait
that loved me
inconditionnellement.
unconditionally.
Aujourd'hui, pour la première fois, je réalise à quel point c'était important que je sois avec elle ces 2 années-là.
Today, the first time I realized how important it was that I was with her for these 2 years.
She was something else. Aujourd'hui, je sais que j'ai encore des choses à régler avec mon père qui est décédé en 2003.
Today, I know that I still have to heal things in regards to my father that passed away in 2003.
Puis en t'entendant, Marc-Claude, je réalisais que tu pourrais m'aider à me reconnecter avec ça.
And when I was listening to you, Marie-Claude, I understood that you could help me through this.
Stuart, I think you were wrong yesterday. You were wrong if I'm going to try to relate exactly what you said. We should not have done that. Letting the whites, we should have brought them back. I really think you were wrong. Because you know what? I wouldn't be here today. And we would not still have a chance to change this stupid world. I would be dead over there. We have a teacher in the place. I want to help you to teach. We've got Mumble. We can, every one of each of you, we can help bring people and to receive education of creation. We've got the best teacher in the world. Just bring them. Let them sit down in the Mumble. We've got 2 teachers. One in Mexico, one in Quebec. Invite them to sit down. Can't teach them. I'm an artist too. You know why? Because when you're connected to your soul, to your spirit, you become an artist. You create. You let life comes to you and you create. Yesterday, I don't remember, you mentioned about 27. 27, I don't know that number came out. You know how I try to, because I don't always know if I'm in the good path. Life tells me now. I just look at numbers. I just look at what's in front of me. So when 20 and 7 are in front of me, 20 is the day of birth of my mother. 7 is my date of birth. So when I see 27, can't be in the wrong path. It's mine. There's so many signs you can see when you live in your present moment, present time. Not being ahead in your head, not being behind, just being there and enjoy what you're living. You're gonna see magical of life. Life is it's pure magic. Amy, you did ask me why did I ask that question the other night. You asked me why do you ask me that question? No, Amy. Yeah. I think you have the answer, do you? It was not my power. I'm nothing. Well, I'm nothing. I'm just part of this universe. I'm just one day I wrote, I'm just a little river. No, I'm just a drop of water, absolutely persuaded that I'm gonna become a small river. That's the only great sentence I'm gonna write in my life, I guess. I'm just a little tiny drop of water, and I know that I'm gonna become a small river. I wish I had the opportunity to let you listen to one song that came to. Oh, I dream all. You know what? I dreamed yesterday. I can't really figure out why did I dream that, but I dream even if I'm awake. I dream all the time because things are coming to my mind. And that song was Evangeline. We're gonna put it on. You're gonna listen to it. I can do it now. Hey?
I'll sing it.
Let her sing it. You mind? And then I'll close with this.
Not now.
No? Okay. So we'll sing it.
Later.
Why not now? Or
You said you were gonna sing it.
I didn't say when because
oh, just before you do, one thing I learned in my life: never projected what you can do now when you can do it now. Do it now. Don't procrastinate. Because if you procrastinate, maybe you're never gonna do it. Hey, you know, I'm so proud of my son. He told me about a month ago. Oh no, more than that. 6 months ago. I'm gonna pilot planes, and he's doing it. He's doing it. I would have took 10 years. I mean, I would have never done it anyway, but he did it. I'm proud of him. You know what I mean? How does it start? How does it start?
putting me on the spot.
How does it start? I'm gonna help you.
I didn't know I would be put on the spot like this because singing is very, emotional, and I'll just give you a little bit of context. Je vais vous donner un petit peu de contexte. Evangeline is the name of a woman, an Acadian. C'est le nom d'une femme, a woman, a very strong woman, actually. She's my hero. Elle est mon héroïne. She's fictional. C'est une fiction. Actually, the truth is that la vérité, c'est que ce personnage, this character, was created by an American writer, Longfellow. En fait, ce personnage fictif a été créé par un auteur américain qui s'est épris de la saga des Acadiens. Longfellow learned about the Acadian saga, and he wrote a poem about our saga and created this fictional Evangeline. She's an hero. Elle est une héroïne qui illustre tout le combat que les Acadiens ont dû faire pour revenir de la déportation. Evangeline recounts the story of the Acadians who were decimated, deported, and their struggle and journey to get back together, to find their families again, to get back together and find their children, families, and the story is about Evangeline and her lover. Cette histoire est à propos de Evangeline et son amant, Gabriel. So it reflects la déportation où ils ont été séparés. Elle représente le moment où les familles ont été divisées. Donc, Gabriel et Evangeline ont été séparés. They were separated during the deportation. And the best person to sing it, la personne qui a fait cette chanson le mieux,
It's Marie-Jo Pell,
it's Marie-Jo Pell.
and we're gonna listen to her.
Okay. I was about to get my tablet because you need the music behind. Thank you, Alain.
Comment ça, je me mets dans le bain parce que je connais pas tout le monde. Les étoiles éteintes dans le ciel,
Toi
toi les bras dans les bras de Gabriel. Faisait beau, c'était dimanche. Les cloches allaient bientôt sonner. Et tu allais te marier dans ta première robe blanche. L'automne était bientôt avancé. Les troupeaux étaient tous rentrés. Et partis toutes les sarcelles. Et le soir, au son des violons, les filles et les garçons t'auraient dit que tu étais belle. Évangéline, Évangéline. Mais les Anglais sont arrivés, ils ont tous enfermé les hommes de ton village. Et les femmes nous ont dû passer sur la plage toute la nuit sur le rivage. Au matin, ils ont embarqué les hommes tous dans les bateaux. Sont partis sans un rire, sans un sourire, toute seule sur le quai. Tu essayais de prier, mais tu n'avais plus rien à dire. Évangélina, Évangéline. I can't sing, I'm too emotional. Alors pendant plus de 20 ans, tu as cherché ton amant à travers dans les plaines et les vallons. Elle portait ton nom comme la plus belle musique. Même si ton cœur était mort, ton amour grandissait plus fort dans l'absence. Il était toutes tes pensées, et chaque jour, il florissait dans le grand jardin du silence. Évangéline. Tu vécus dans le seul désir de soulager ceux qui guérirent, ceux qui souffraient plus que toi-même. Tu as compris qu'au bout des chagrins, on trouve toujours un chemin qui mène à celui qui nous aime. Ainsi, un dimanche matin, tu entendis dans le lointain les clochers de ton village. Et soudain, tu as compris que les épreuves étaient finies, ainsi que le très long voyage. Évangéline, Évangéline. Devant toi, elle s'est rendue sur le grabat inconnu. Elle vit alors mourant de faiblesse. Dans la lumière du matin, son visage si détruit, prendre les traits de son jeunesse. Gabriel mourut dans tes bras, sur sa bouche, tu déposas un désir plus long que la vie. Il faut avoir beau aimer pour pouvoir encore retrouver la force de dire merci. Not finished.
Il existe encore aujourd'hui
Il existe encore aujourd'hui
des gens qui vivent
dans ton pays
et qui
et qui de ton nom se souviennent.
car
Car
le
si
ciel
on
parle
parle
de
de
toi.
toi,
Les vents du
le
sud
sud
portent ta voix,
porte ta voix,
de la forêt jusqu'à
jusqu'à la plaine. Ton nom c'est plus que le peuple, plus que l'Acadie, plus que la patrie. Ton nom dépasse les frontières.
Ton nom c'est le nom de tous ceux
Ton nom c'est le nom de tous ceux qui, malgré qu'ils sont malheureux,
croient dans l'amour
croient en l'amour
qui
et qui espèrent.
Evangelina.
Evangelina.
Quel bonheur d'être ici, Claude.
Courageuse, oui.
Prêt. Oui.
Chris Mind, my mom Louise Mind here, my dad Tony Mind, from Musqueam territory, Alberta. We're part Cree, part Blackfoot. I see what the residential schools has done to our people, and I see a lot of it is trying to come back, like with our ceremonies. Lot of it is trying to come back now, where before we didn't have so many ceremonies, but today there's a lot more coming back to our community, which is a good thing to see. Like even coming down here was a challenge. Somebody was trying to stop us from coming here. I don't know why, but I asked my mom to come last year. Well, I told them about the canoe trip. So, but then they wanted to come here again. So I'm really glad we made it this year to partake in all this, and I really appreciate all your stories and everything. And but my mom has another story from her side of the family, but I know from my dad's side of the family, from our bloodlines, is we come from Big Bear clan, the warrior, medicine warrior chief Big Bear. That we're descendants from him. Anyways, that's all I know. That's all I've been told was from somebody from Musqueam who was actually doing some research, and he was the one telling me that we were actually descendants from Big Bear. So, and he was a Cree warrior medicine chief. So, but anyways, that's what I'm proud of. And I guess I had an awakening about 30 years ago. I used to see my dad trying to sweat by himself, and I was thinking, of course, at the time I was heavy into drugs and heavy into alcohol, but I pushed myself to start helping him and learning. And so I guess through those sweats and all that, that's what helped me to put down, quit living the way I was living, because I know it wasn't a good life. So I know through ceremonies, good things come. Sometimes it takes a while. So anyways, I still help them to this day. But I also know that, I know how much we lost, because some of the songs, there seem to be, they're not all there, like they're cut pieces missing. And I don't know if it's, I was asking my dad about that. Well, how come our songs are short? And then when I go to other sweats, those same songs, they're longer. But so anyways, yeah, so that's kind of what put me on this path, was just knowing that there needs to be a change in this world, and then so that's how I started. I started helping my dad, and then one time I helped my brother spiritually, help him quit drinking. He wasn't doing good. Some kind of an alcohol spirit had taken over him, and so anyways, me and my sister, Rhea, she came to me one night, and I had told her, I said, she told me what she seen. This thing with horns. It was on my brother's face. And we kept taking him to all these medicine men to help him. And he would get better for a short period of time, but he'd always go back to drinking. He was turning yellow. So one night, Rhea comes crying to me and tells me what she just seen at her house. And it upset me, and I didn't know what to tell her. I was comforting her, I was telling her we're gonna do something. So I comforted her and I told her that we're gonna do something tomorrow. And then, so she left, and I told her what to do. I told her go home, smudge him. Even if he's sleeping, just smudge him, everything. And I told her in the morning before the sun rises to come back with him and to bring anything that she has for offerings. Prints, tobacco, ribbons. So she left. And then I started thinking, what am I gonna do? What can I do? I'm no medicine man. Anyways, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't sleep all night thinking, what am I gonna do when all these other powerful medicine men couldn't help him either? What am I gonna do? So I hardly slept that night. And in the morning, something woke me up before the sun. So I got up and I got ready. And then my sister wasn't there yet, and I laid back down and I thought, what am I gonna do? And I thought, well, I guess they're not coming. I guess I'll just go back to sleep. That's what I thought. But anyways, next thing there was a knock on the door. It was my sister and my brother. So I let them in, let the smudge right away. And I asked, the first thing I asked my brother is, do you want to live? And he said, yes. And I asked him this question 4 times. And then I told him what we're going to do. It's going to be a big sacrifice. And I told him, you got to want this from in here. You got to want to live for your children. So I grabbed all my stuff, just some smudge and some prints, tobacco too, that's all I had. So we all smudged inside my house, and then I said, let's go before the sun comes up. So we went to my dad's house, to the buffaloes. And we went into the buffaloes where the buffaloes were there. So we put the blanket down, we sat on there, we started praying, smudging and praying. just the three of us, holding hands, praying as the sun was coming up. So then I told my brother, take these offerings and this tobacco, go to the east as the sun's coming up, offer them up. And then me and my sister will stay here and pray. So he did. And we continued to pray. And then we just prayed in silence, me and Rhea. And then my brother came back and it was all done and everything, the end of the ceremony. And then we went our own ways that day. And then Rhea comes back to me later in the evening. She says to me, I broke down. She bought my brother some alcohol, 2 cans, 2 big cans. And I kind of got after her. I said, why did you do that? And then she started telling me, well, she was worried about him having a heart attack. And then I calmed down. I realized, you're right. I didn't let her finish her story. But then, after I realized, she had told me that he spilled the other can. He couldn't finish it. But, so, I didn't tell anybody what I did. So, in my prayers, I asked the Creator. I had offered my right arm for my brother's life, but I didn't tell anybody. In 4 days, my arm started hurting here, right from the top to my fingertips. On that 4th morning, something went through there. But I didn't tell anybody. As time went on, this pain was there more and more each day, and I still wouldn't tell anybody because I knew that I had to suffer some. But time went on and it got to the point where 6 months, my arm started, I couldn't move my arm. The pain was there 24 hours a day. I would wake up crying, go to bed crying from the pain, but I still refused to tell anybody. And I finally told my spouse at the time, I told her what I did and why my arm wasn't working and why my arm was in pain. So she right away went and told my parents. And then of course I got in trouble. But I just told my mom, I said it was worth it. Look, it was worth it to save my brother. I'm okay. It just happened we were having a ceremony. My mom wanted a ceremony at my dad's house, and then it just happened that this was the time when I spilt the beans. So then I started asking for help. What can I do to save my arm? Because already it's not moving, I can't move it. And the pain is unbearable. So we had a big ceremony. I had to give away everything, have a big giveaway in order to keep my arm. For 4 years, 16 ceremonies, a ceremony each. We had a ceremony each season. But that's how long it took to heal, 4 years. during that time, this man that came to us that was doing that ceremony, he wanted me to start helping him. So I started helping him. And I started gathering these little things from these ceremonies, little, also a pipe was involved. A pipe came to me. So I started making my own bundle with the things that were my own rattles, drums, everything. And I accumulated enough to make my own little bundle here. And I went to go help him one ceremony. About 50, 60 people, maybe 40, I don't know. There was a whole basement full of people. And he turns to me and he says, "You see that?" And he points down there, and I looked at him and I was like, I looked down between us. And I wasn't sure what he was pointing at. And there was a pile of money there. And he says that, and I looked at him again, and he says, "It's not big enough. We can't start yet." And I looked at that money, and then I looked at him, and then I looked at my spouse. And I knew right then and there that I'm done. I don't want nothing to do with this man anymore. So I walked away. And he kept calling for me, and he kept calling for this pipe through my other sister. And I told my sister, I said, "You tell him to come here and get this pipe. Why does he send you here when he gave this to me, which was never his? It was never his. He got this pipe at a museum and brought it to me. That pipe wanted to be saved, but people had the dreams that I had that pipe. So he went to get the pipe and brought it straight to my house. And we had that ceremony when I got the pipe. And then when I walked away, he wanted everything back. And I kept saying, "No, it's not yours. None of this is yours." But I would never talk to him. It was always through my sister. And finally, my mom kept telling me, give it back, because all of a sudden this man is now on another path, not a good path. And everybody's afraid of this man. And I told my mom, I'm not afraid of him. This pipe came to me for a reason, and if he wants it, he should come to me and tell me why. How does it belong to him? When reality, my family sent him the money for that pipe, and then he just brought it to us. But so, anyways, I kept telling my mom, no, I don't want to do that. I paid a big price here for this pipe, 4 years. It was still hurting at the time as well. But finally, my mom was crying to me, and that's what made me finally I broke. You want to hear my mom crying? She was only crying and worried because this man is known for doing bad things as well. So I understand where she was coming from, and I said, okay, I will do this for you. And I cried to the pipe. Then when my sister came, I told her, you better be careful of this man. So I gave it to her. But yeah, that's just one story there. And then, so that was all good, sent it back. And I guess this spring, he's trying to get a hold of me again now, this springtime, trying to give it back now. But I just said no. So I just kind of took a step back from culture, and I just confused, you know. I know these pipes don't belong to people. They don't belong to individuals, they belong to people. So anyways, yeah, I just, and then my dad we kind of quit sweating for a while there. And just this year we started again. But even my dad has a pipe and he keeps trying to give it to me. And I keep telling him I don't know if I'm ready for it. So, but I see, like I said, through cultural, through the residential, what it's done to our people, and how our ceremonies are cut short and whatever. But no, I still help my dad, like when we do the sweats. I also have a few of my own songs, but I don't know if I learned from my dad, and I was learning Blackfoot. So. But anyways, I'm happy to be here. I know it's always a struggle when you're trying to live good and trying to do good. It's always a struggle. There's always that negative energy, negative people trying to stop good things. I know that. I lived it. And I haven't given up. Because I also see this with my Cree people, how sometimes ceremony, they want money, things, or else they don't want to help you for whatever reasons. I've seen this lot. So I just keep do my own little ceremony at home, that's all, with my family. I don't try to go out there. I'm just waiting, I guess, for the right teacher. I just kind of took a step back from all culture. But we do pray at home. But yeah, so I'm really glad to be part of this, to come in here, you know, something new that I believe we've all lost, you know. It's a different aspect, a different sight that we're seeing here, and meeting all these friendly people and everything like that, and, hearing all these great stories. It's a healing journey as well. Like I said, we just put my brother in the ground a month ago, and that's what I told my mom. She kept questioning, and I said, you know, I think we need this just to get out of here, you know. Start somewhere, hear something different, you know. Same song and dance back home. So, yeah, it's an awakening for us all, I believe, and I'm really glad we're able to take part in this. But yeah, so that's also, I see how powerful our ceremonies are and our smudges, because see, when me and Rhea did that, there was nobody there. Just me, Rhea, and my brother. And it was a great sacrifice, but it was worth the life, you know, the life of my brother. It was worth it for me to help him. And now he's become a journeyman plumber, and he's sobered up since that day. But I got excited when Rhea bought him those 2 cans, but he only drank the one, and the second one he spilled it on. That's how fast that worked. But yeah, so I'll end with that, and hopefully we'll be able to stay for the whole amount of time here. Even me at work, I'm the public works manager back home, and I see how our people don't work together. I help every department, I help other bands, and then when I ask for help, I get nothing. So I'm getting fed up with it. I was telling my mom, I said, I don't know if I'm gonna go back to work when I get home. I don't. It's not worth the headaches, or money's not everything. I know I do a lot of good work there. I have done, but even today I'm getting backstabbed right now at work. So I just feel it's time to do something else. So I'll probably just take a break when I get home from work, for now anyway.
Oh, yeah. This is a time of where people offer their personal things, what they want to offer. Their personal journey, their personal information. She wanted to know if you could sing a song from the Cree Nation, and if she could ask you to do that. And I said, well, you could ask him later. Because if he wants to do that here, that's what he will do. If somebody wants to do whatever they want to do, sing their song, sing somebody else's song, if they want to do that. But you could ask him that later. Unless all of a sudden he stood up right now and said, I'll sing a song for you.
You have a drum? I can sing. Sing one song.
Where's my drums up front? You absolutely need a drum.
No.
Hey, there you go.
They rattle? Maybe.
second, I want to send you something back. We are ho, how you want it, ho, we are 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 ho, how you want it, ho, we are how you want it, ho. When you were singing your song, that's the song it reminded me of. It's almost got the same way. Ho. Those songs got to be have a connection somewhere.
Mr. One Note that Natuika Katusa. It's me, Holy Star Woman. I come from Sixgum Blackfoot woman. My mom's father, so my great-grandfather was involved in the Custer massacre. And then when the massacre was over, with Sitting Bull and his warriors fled to Canada, and they lived with the Blackfoot. And my great-grandfather, for 2 years, they lived with the Blackfoot for 2 years. So my great-grandfather's last name was Good Eagle. And my grandfather's name is Joe Good Eagle. So my mom was Maggie Good Eagle. So after 2 years, the U.S. government said they would forgive Sitting Bull if he returned. They really wanted him back so they could persecute him anyway. But my great-grandfather had already taken a Blackfoot wife, so he just stayed. He didn't go back. So we have Sioux blood in us. And on my grandmother's side, my dad's mom, she was raised by the Crees because her dad was Big Snake Crawling, was his last name. And as a child, he was stolen by the Crees because the Crees and the Blackfoot were enemies. The Crees lived in the north and the Blackfoots in the south. So they were always warring against each other. And they used to steal men and women and children, kidnap women and children to expand their, what do you call it? When you don't want to stay.
Bloodline?
Yeah, bloodline. You know, so that it's not all the same, or I don't know. It was important back then, anyway. And then, so my great-grandfather on my grandmother's side that was stolen, he found out he was Blackfoot when the Indian agent, they signed a treaty so that to quit with the fighting. I think that was Treaty 7, and one of the agreements was that they had to return the children and the women that they had stolen, kidnapped. So that's how my great-grandfather found out he was a Blackfoot, because so all of the ones that had been kidnapped were returned, but he was the only one that hadn't been returned. But the people that raised him knew he was a Blackfoot child. But already it had been quite a few years, so he had grown into a man. And then this old man in Siksika, Big Snake Crawling, my great-grandfather, he was the only one that still didn't have his son returned. So they asked him, are there any marks on him that you can recognize him as your son? And he said he'll have a big scar, burned scar on his belly from when he was a little boy, got burned by the campfire. So they asked him if he was willing to go and see if that was his son. So they took him up there and they met, and he had that scar. So that's how they knew that was his son. So they asked him what he wanted to do. And he said, he only spoke Cree by then, but he said, the father, Big Snake Crawling, said, I'll leave it up to him to decide what he wants to do, because already had become a man. And he came back to Siksika only in the summertime. He would spend the whole summer there because he didn't speak the language yet. You know, he had already forgotten it. And but he would always return home to Musqueam. So he ended up being a Samson band member. That's part of Musqueam. And but he ended up taking a Blackfoot wife. And then they had children. But the children, my grandmother, one of them, were all raised in Musqueam. So when she was younger, I'm not sure how the story goes because my parents, my grandmothers, had my mom and my dad, both of them late in life. So by the time I was 8, she had passed away. And the other one was when I was 9, she passed away. So we didn't have no one to tell us anything anymore because my dad was an only child. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, was educated. She went to school, in residential school. She was one of the first ones to be registered in Siksika. There was 2 residential schools. One was Anglican and the other one was a Catholic school, residential. So she was put in there, and so back then it was really rare for an Indian woman to be educated because my grandmother on my mom's side never spoke a word of English. She only spoke Black because she never went to school. And that was my grandma, Laura Goodeagle. So my grandma Annie, yellow old woman, the one that was raised in Hobima, she knew she was Blackfoot, but she married a guy, my grandfather, from Hobima. And he was a translator. He became a translator. And his name was Fred LaFrance. And one day I never liked my last name, so one day I asked my uncle, my dad's first cousin, how he came about that name, like, was my grandfather really part French? And he says, oh no, he wasn't French. He was Creolist like me. He said he learned how to speak a little bit French back in the fur trade days, and he would always show off, thinking he could speak, French. And then when the Indian agent came to translate the names to English, he asked that guy, that Indian, that native that knew a little English, I guess. The Indian agent asks him, what's this one called? And he said, we call him the Frenchman, because in Musqueam, the Crees are always giving nicknames, eh? We call him the Frenchman, because he thinks he knows how to speak French. But anyway, and that Indian agent says, well, law means the, and France. We'll just call him LaFrance. So that's how my maiden name came about. But in school, we were given a rough time over it because they would call us dirty half-breeds because they thought we were half-breeds and we're not, over the last name. So that's why I always never liked my maiden name, which is LaFrance. And here I am in Quebec.
No, you're gonna like it. No, you're gonna start liking it.
I still don't like it. So my kid's dad and I are divorced, and I still refuse to take back my maiden name. But back when back in the 60s when we got married, it was one of the policies that if you married another man from a different reserve, you had no choice. You had to move to that reserve and become a band member from there. It's not like that anymore, but that's why I'm from Musqueam, still from Musqueam, from Ermineskin. And I've been a band member there for 51 years. Anyway, so my grandmother, my dad's mom, became a cook. She became a head cook for when they were bringing the Iron Horse west. She was the head cook for that train crew that was building the tracks. And when she got to Siksika, she was already a widow. My grandfather, my dad's dad, got killed in the First World War. And he was born in Regina, so when my dad was 1 year old. So when they get to Siksika, she's already a widow. And my grandfather, Vincent, yellow old woman, he was a widower with 2 little boys. So they were the same age as my dad. And he was an RCMP scout. Back then it was like, a cop. They called them our scouts back then. So he, of course, it was his duty to check on that train crew because they were camped there. And that's where he met my grandmother. Well, she already knew she was Blackfoot. So he started wooing her and then they hooked up. So they got married and when we were young already, they were real old. And he used to always tell us, I married your grandma on Heart's Day, Valentine's Day. And my grandparents, they were the ones that showed me how to be strong and live, just rely on the culture. My grandmother was the boss. Even in Siksika, everybody respected her so much that she was a medicine woman. They respected her so much that they were always real careful around her, and people were always coming to the house to get doctored. Or my grandfather belonged to the Horn Society. In Siksika, they still have societies for the Sundance. There's several societies. And they don't have societies with the Crees, but they still have bundles, and Siksika has, the Blackfoots really have a lot of bundles. So when I think of my grandparents, Vincent and Annie, the old woman, I'm always thankful to them that's where I get my strength from, because I seen them how strong they were in their convictions, and whereas my grandparents, the Good Eagles, they were real strong Catholic, and they used to walk 8 miles to church every Sunday, and they were already old. When I was 9 years old, they celebrated their 50th anniversary, and they would still walk to church. They were so dedicated, and yet when they got their pension, they would go get drunk. So it was just 2 different worlds, and they only lived about 4 miles apart. But the difference I seen between both households was what made me decide how I was going to live my life and how I was going to raise my kids if I ever had kids. I was really fortunate that my kids' dad was always a good provider, worker, so I never had to work. I'm really thankful that I was a stay-at-home mom. I finally went back to school when I left the marriage after my baby Ria was 19, and I went back home to Siksika, and I went back to school. That was the only way I could get funding, money to live on, because I had no skills. I only had housekeeping, all the skills you develop raising kids, and I raised my 8 children. Tony wasn't much of a partner when he came to raising the kids. It was always mostly on my own. So I did the best I could with the knowledge I had, which wasn't much, because I lost my mom when I was 26, and I lost my mom when I was 6 years old when I went to residential school. And then when I would come home on weekends or summer holidays, it wasn't every weekend, it was mostly just during the holidays. She wasn't a very good mom because she was always sick. And then my dad's drinking didn't help. So it wasn't, I didn't have a good childhood. So I made a promise to myself that I would raise my kids in the way I grew up in my grandmother's house, my dad's mom. In her house where there was no drinking, it was just every morning when we woke up, we could smell the sweet pine on the stove or sweet grass, always some kind of smudge. That's what would wake us up. At night, same thing. It was so comforting. And I always tell people, if you're down, depressed, anything, just smell a braid of sweet grass and it just lifts away all your troubles. It just does something to you, that sweet grass. I know that sweet grass was a man's spirit and he offered his life to help us down here because, we're so pitiful, us humans. And I can see now why women have lost their power, because we have lost the teachings. And when I moved back when I lived in Hobima, I had 4 boys, and before I had my first girl. And I found out about these ceremonies that they had for coming of age for girls when they have their first moon. There's a ceremony, it's a 4-day ceremony. So I decided, but it was hardly anybody did it. So I wanted to make sure I did that for my girls. I just had the 2 girls, and so we did it. So I went through with it, and it's empowering for the girls. And I'm really thankful that I went out of my way to do these ceremonies for my girls, but I didn't know of any ceremonies for the boys. Otherwise, I would have done that too. And I had counted on their dad to help more in that area, but he failed to do so. But anyway, in those ceremonies, you learn about, for the women, because we know we are the ones that bring life. We were given that gift to bring life into this world. That's why we're more powerful than men. So it's so important to know these things about being a woman that makes a big difference. I can see now why men are weak, because women nowadays don't know all these teachings, and it's so sad. You empower yourself by not stepping over anybody when they're alive. You over food, over water, because they're sacred. When you have a spouse, you don't step over your spouse. If you're when you're in bed, you don't crawl over them. You never crawl over any of your male children or your spouse. You have to be really respectful with yourself all the time. You don't go announcing, telling everybody I'm on my moon time. That's not right. It's a private thing. It's a sacred thing. The men do not have to know this. That's one thing that I noticed with the non-natives. They've lost that. For me, I see it as they've lost that, or they don't know about it, I guess, that respect, how powerful we are when we're in that moon time. The reason we don't step over men or food or water is because we can hurt them just by being in our moon time. That's why you never go to ceremonies where there's a pipe involved when you're in your moon time. And back in Muscogee, we're really fortunate that we still have these ceremonies that empower us. And it's the only community that I know of where they still practice these coming of age ceremonies. And it's getting, people are using it more and more, which is really good. There's lots of little things to know about for women when you're at that time. It's important when you go to ceremonies like even this to wear a skirt or a dress, because when you wear, or if you cover yourself up, people are more apt to hear you or listen to you, pay attention. Whereas when you wear pants, it's not the same. You don't get that same respect because we're female, we're not male. And pants are for the male. We should always be in dresses and skirts. So whenever I go to a ceremony, I always make sure my girls or my granddaughters back home, because we always use the pipe, I make sure that they wear skirts out of respect. It's that respect that has been lost. That's why we're pitiful. I live by the teachings that my grandparents passed on to me. And even though my mom, I didn't have her much in my life, because she ended up turning to alcohol, when she was in her right mind, she always had good advice for me. And I still hang on to the words that she said. And that has taken care of me, and it helped me to be, I won't say I was the best mom, but it helped me to be a better mother than what she was. And I'm thankful that I had that in me to pass it on to my kids. And I've always told my kids, be a better parent than I was. The way I said I would be a better parent than what my parents were, because my parents, if I had to choose parents, I would never have chosen them, because it was not good. When I was young, still a young mom in Hobbema, I was always home alone. Tony was never around. I used to always have elders come visit me, and they would always pass on teachings, and those are the teachings that I have hung on to this day, and that's what has guided me, and that's what helps me. And anybody that's willing to listen, when they come around me, I pass those teachings on. But now, because of social media, especially Facebook, it's almost like corrupting our youth, not only our youth, everybody in general. Myself, I've never been on Facebook. I'm thankful I'm strict like that with myself. I don't need it. The same with like drugs. I've never tried drugs. I respect my mind. If you respect your mind, it's easy to respect yourself. It's easy to respect everybody. And it makes you stronger. But I just wanted to share these things, few things I know with you people, and about my background, what I know about myself, my grandparents, and it was from them I have learned all. I know why we ended up here. Because me and my children, my family were, I won't say we're the strongest traditional family, but we're pretty strong, because I have never baptized my kids. We don't go to church. We don't mix religions. It's not good to mix religions, because now back home, if I go to a funeral or a wedding, that priest now, he'll burn sweetgrass in the church, and that's not right. And that's what the elders used to stress. Don't mix religions. There's nothing wrong with their church. it's not ours. That's the only difference. It was not given to us. The sweet grass, the pipe, the ceremonies, that's what was given to us, not the church. We did not kill their God, Jesus. Even our Sundance reflects why. I know the story about why we have the Sundance now. It has to do with when Jesus was born. Even in Alberta, it's the most sacred place on earth in the Cypress Hills, because that's the only place on earth where Jesus, and us in Blackwood, we call him Napi, and the Crees call him Waisakejak. I don't know what you guys call him. That first man. You must have a name for him.
We don't have a first man.
Anyway.
First woman.
For us, it was the first man. That's where they met. That was the only time Creator came down to earth. So he told them after the meeting he was going to create man, and he was going to leave it up to them where they wanted to be put. So he asked Jesus Christ, where do you want to be put? And he said, I want to be put on the toughest place on earth. That's why he was born in Jerusalem. And to this day, it's still not a good place. And Napi, he said, I'll stay here with my people. And then he went east, putting the rest of the tribes there. That's what I know about. We have all the stories about creation. There's this guy back home from Samson that knows all the stories. And he has that gift to remember, because it takes 30 days to hear the stories. And there's a shorter version of 7 days, and there's still a shorter version of 3 days, because nowadays, we don't have the patience it's so hard for us to have the patience to sit there and listen. But he did come to sit with us for 3 days to tell us some of the stories. But anyway, so they come and told us, the spirits, the grandfathers, come to tell us that Jesus was going to be born. And they said, you'll know when he's born when you see that bright star in the sky. So as soon as they seen it, they did a ceremony to give thanks that God sent his son down. And then they came back and they told us they're going to kill him. And you'll know when he dies that the world will turn dark during the daytime. So as soon as it turned dark, that's when they came up with the Sundance to honor him. That's where the Sundance comes from. This is what I was told. All the teachings that the elders used to come and tell me, I really believe, and I'm thankful that they come and shared these stories with me. There was this one old man, he barely spoke English, and when my mom passed away, I really wanted to do it the traditional way as best as I could in Siksika, because back then there was pretty much no culture. And so he came down and then he spoke to us children about a few things. He had to have a translator. And when he passed away, and he was one of the ones that would come and share stuff with Tony and I. And when he passed away, I had a dream. He'd come to say goodbye to me. And he showed me where he was, and they were having a big ceremony for him on the other side. They were so happy that he made it there, and he just wanted me to see it, and it just made me cry. I was so happy for him. And he lived to be pretty old. But anyway, I hope I have not offended anyone with what I've said. I know it's important for you people to hear these things from where we come from. I feel like I don't know if believe is the right word, but it's all, some things well, I guess at my age it's hard to change my thinking. But anyway, I just rather hang on to these teachings that the elders came to share with me and what has taken care of me. But I know now why we ended up here, because 20 years ago, it'll be 20 years next month, we had an occupation at the band office that we ended up in jail for quite a few hours, and the chief at that time gave instructions to the band members to kill us. Because that chief was into the full gospel religion, and he didn't like that we were standing up for ourselves. He was trying to eliminate the pipe and the ceremonies from the band office. Didn't want to support people that still did ceremonies. So he was really, really mad that we had our nerve to stand up to him. And he was a real bad, he couldn't be trusted, because people like that, that say they only pray this way, the way he did with his church, and yet he'll turn around and he'll go get Indian medicine so that he could be elected. He used bad medicine to stay in office. So the elders told us after that happened that those are the most dangerous kind of people. You just can't be trusted. You just can't trust them. They're very dangerous. And when I found out that he had, because they maced us, we were locked in the band office. They blackened the windows. We made a fire in the fireplace. We were in the council chambers, and they put a blanket over, thinking they'd smoke us out, I guess. But I made a fire on the rug so we could have light, because it was total darkness. And his picture was the only one that fell off the wall, because they were all on the wall, all the past chiefs. And I stood in the fire, and he was so mad at me that that following year he arranged it so that I could be sent away. That's how come I left my kids. I was sent back to. They said they would, because Tony went into a real bad depression, because the next day right after that, when we got released from jail, he seemed, I don't know what they did to him or what happened to him, he just couldn't seem to come out of it. And it was, so almost 10 months he stayed at home, and before that he was always a worker. So all our livelihood was taken. We were reduced to living on $230 a month for welfare, him and I. Each, that's all we got compared to what he was making before, and it was really harsh. And then I couldn't, I kept encouraging him and talking to him, but it's like he couldn't hear me. He would just sit at the table all day playing cards, solitaire. I just couldn't take it anymore. And then next thing I get a call from education. They said, if you go away to school, we'll fund you. So I took it. That's how I ended up back in Siksika. Plus, I was told, this woman had a dream, and I was told that if I didn't leave, that something would happen to my kids and that, and I would have to live with that. So anyway, that was another reason why I left, but I know it has a lot to do with that occupation. Just because we believe we wanted to hang on to our culture, our traditions. We've been paying for a long time now. I don't know, sometimes I wonder about that massacre, that Custer massacre, if it followed us, or because my brothers, 5 of them already, I've had to bury them. They were all younger than me. And there's only 3 alive, and 2 of them are paraplegic. So it's no, one is paraplegic, the other one is crippled from accidents. So I just feel like we've been getting punished, my family, and that my kids now, because of this other, what happened, that occupation. We made the news, we were called dissidents for disobeying our chief. And it was brutal, but we're still here. And that's the main thing. And that's when they burned our teepee. Shauna had a new teepee, they burned it down. They were in a frenzy, that crowd. It was like a mob mentality. They just ripped up that teepee and they burnt it because they had a barrel. They made a fire outside the band office there, all his supporters, and they burned everything. Our Pendleton blanket, and I think even the teepee poles. And the elders told us that I don't know what I can only say it's a sin, because that's the only way to explain it. But what they did was a huge sin, burning the teepee and treating us like that, macing us, and him giving the orders to kill us, and that's what they were prepared to do, was to kill us. But anyway, we went to jail. So like even coming here too, what he said, it was scary what happened when we broke down. The truck tire caught on fire, the brakes gave way, and I just knew, and I asked my friend to check, and she said somebody was causing it. She didn't say, that's all she said, somebody was causing it. So I know that our prayers and the way we believe really takes care of us and helps us. And my grandparents, my deceased, my ancestors are always taking care of us too, which I'm very thankful for. But back home, we never hear of Sky Woman. There's not many people that, talk about things like this. So this is like new to me. But I guess you know a little bit more about me, and that's all I got to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Step out of my shoes.
Before we continue, oh goodness. As we spoke of the other day, that we talked about the DNA of our Mother Earth. I don't know if you were here yet. No, you weren't here yet. I don't think so, right? No. I'll tell you what, maybe one evening, we'll sit around the fire and we'll talk about the DNA of our Mother Earth. And about within the DNA of our Mother Earth, it identifies how, in the structure of DNA, again, if it's like a ladder, one side is female, one side is male. On the DNA of our Mother Earth, the mountain ranges that crisscross stemming out of the South Pole. This is where all landmass comes from on Earth. There is no other landmass connected to the South Pole or the North Pole. Only Turtle Island is connected to both North and South Pole. Within that mountain range that crisscrosses, there is one that is male, one that is female. But in the beginning, the very beginnings, it's just one. And the just one is, if we trace our lineage back far enough, we'll know that, like here, we're all born of woman, so we know we will trace our lineage back to the original woman. So the original mountain range that comes out of the South Pole, this is female. This is the reason why in what is called South America, you will see only one mountain range in the south. It's not a two mountain range thing. It only begins up around Venezuela. It begins around in that area. But anyways, make a long story short here, the west, this is the male side. The east, this is the female side. I am of the female. On your side, you are of the male. Now, in the double helix, the ladder, there's a connection between both. Okay, the female initiates. It's like playing tennis. You hit the tennis ball, well, you're going to hit it back, so it's going to come back, and that's how DNA works. DNA works is the interaction between the two sides. And within there, we will find, of course, there is a lot, like we mentioned earlier, on your side of the country, they go clockwise. Our side of the country, they go counterclockwise. It complements each other. Female and male, they are the exact same but opposite. And so there are things that are initiated by both. And in this sense, then, we will be able to understand why a lot of things are the way that they are in your part of the country and in our part of the country. But regardless, we all come from the same place anyway. And even perhaps with your name, as you know, there was Mohawks that traveled out to your part of the country. There's still some there. You said, like, I guess in the Simpsons, there's a lot of Mohawks there. We went and we visited them there about 93. We went there. And when we were there, a lot of things were reignited between us. A lot of memory, a lot of knowledge. And as we went across, we traveled with the French. This is, what's his name there, that guy? This is how he became known, Louis Riel. Anyways, there's a lot of Mohawk interaction out in your part of the country. That was initiated by the female side. Now, you are coming to this part of the country. I'm not saying right now today you are here, but now there is your people starting to come to this side of the country. Just like then, we were looking for something, and now from your part of the country, they are looking for something. Just to, when we know this, it'll bring a lot of things into perspective that perhaps we had no way of knowing. Anyways, when you talk about the first man, and I said we have a first woman, that's Sky Woman. But when we get into the realm of the male, there's Sky Woman, our grandmother Moon, our Mother Earth. There are 3 phases of creation, and that is universal, no matter if you're Cree, if you're Blackfoot, if you're French, if you're Chinese, doesn't matter. 3 levels of creation. And those are female, female, female. Male does not come into the picture until female has created herself. And then male is created out of the female. She creates the female. The story of religion, the non-native religion, they identify male was created first. And the man was lonely, so they created a woman out of the man's rib, out of his side. You know, so she, in that sense, under religion, she's an afterthought to keep him company. And so when people follow that, that's what actually develops in their lives. The women are just there to keep the man company, because the man is wherever. It's because right at the core of a belief, right in our very foundation, that's what will develop in this realm, if that's what's at our core. And so this is why a lot of women of the world find themselves raising their children by themselves, because of that religion, because of the distortion of reality. But anyways, we do know of that guy they call Jesus. And that guy, he's a guy, just like anybody else. And just like us, if we're pushed to a limit, somebody is going to say something, and then the other ones that are going to be sacrificed. The first one to say something. In what we're going to learn in a couple of days about the formation of the League, we will learn truth about time. Because when we listen to the religion stories, when they say the first man, Jesus, and their creation story only goes back 7,000 years, of course, it's not true. Because we know it's not true. And the same thing, it cannot be said that Jesus is the first man. That's not true. We know people existed before that. And we know that it can't be said that Jesus was God's son. Because the way that it's said, that he is God's only son. And then, if a person truly believes in God, and they are believing that Jesus is God's only son, then what the hell is everybody else? What are all these people then? And truly they are abominations, and they should be removed from the earth then, according to that religious story. But in that, we did know of him the same way that your people know of him, because those people did in fact come from here. They came from here. And when you said that we must have a first man too, I know what you're meaning now. That yes, there was a man that did indeed establish peace. You know, and all the women know that you can want peace as much as you want, big deal. If the guy is not peaceful, you're not going to have peace. The man is going to destroy your world if his mind is not of peace. So this is the reason why that the male must come to order, come to peace. And so within the male, there is always one somewhere that is going to push the limits of malehood, manhood, of what a man should be, to recognize the equilibrium between the female and the male, to recognize the truth of that the female is first, and that male would put that female first in all things, not just in his thoughts, but in all his words and in all his actions. So there is, in that sense, yes, the first male. There's the first man that started to walk then. And that is a truth and a reality that only occurred here approximately, it was about 23 to 2400 years ago. And when that man came and walked here, like you said, it's the same in all nations. There's some man in each nation that came and established peace. And here, when the peace was established amongst all the people in Turtle Island, it was after, think of this, to establish peace. If we've been here, Earth has been here for billions of years, why is it that just a couple of thousand years ago, some man had to come and establish peace? That's because there was war. People slipped into the Dark Ages. And so, all around the world, it happens. It's a reality of the human condition of how, when we're children, you know, first, if they're not taught correctly, that little kid playing with their dinkies, if some other kid wants to come there and play with the dinkies, that little kid may slap the other kid or say, no, you're not playing with my dinkies. That's a way how we come to learn to then share. And then after that, how to learn how to resolve disputes. You know, but the reality is that the creation itself for humans was not enough to keep humans in balance. As obviously, right up till today, we can see the same thing. Creation itself is not enough to keep humans in balance. There is something more that is needed. And that's when the peacemaker had come. And the peacemaker is not just some guy who came along because he knew how to establish peace or he was more peaceful. No, the man will never do that on his own. Never. It is the women that created him. They pulled him out of the earth. And the women did not have to create him the way that women create children today. Because the woman's love, the woman's need, her necessity for peace, if she is stuck in a world of war, if the women were together with their power, they could create man out of the earth the way that they did in the first instance, without having to go through the process of what we know today, how a woman has to create a man. So anyways, when that man was created and he came into the world and established the peace here, there is a fact that, like it's in your story too, is that what he said, that he was going to go over to our sisters and brothers across the great waters. This is how we've always known about our sisters and brothers. That's why, again, we go back to the flat earth thing. Nobody could be that stupid. It was never true. It was a way to get all the people to wipe their memories clean, to forget about their sisters and brothers here, so that when they did come here, they could easily kill their sisters and brothers because they did not know that it was their sisters and brothers. So, anyways, when he went over there, the same way in what you were identifying, the same way here. There was a mother and a young girl were in the strawberry fields picking the berries. And the young girl seen a man floating above the strawberry field. And he was like this. And they knew who this man was. He was the peacemaker because he was here. But they were terrified because he was dead. He came to show them that on that side they had killed him. And this put terror in the people here, because they knew that the people that killed him, the peacemaker, that they were going to come here to kill all the peacemakers, people, like-minded people. And so this is how we knew of them eventually one day coming back here. That's our prophecy. That this is the two-headed serpent prophecy. That this is the two-headed serpent, quite simply meaning, identifying, two heads. You know, what does two heads mean? It's schizophrenia. And schizophrenia is created out of religion. So this is how the two-headed serpent was created on that side. As in the creation story, they were banished from the garden, and they walked into the nighttime realm, into the darkness. And all the people that like-minded followed into the darkness. And so we knew that once he was killed there in the darkness, that there was going to be a period of time of great darkness on the earth. And this is stemming from the place that you identify. From that place, which is supposed to be, according to all the religions, like the holiest place on earth. It is not the holiest place on earth. It is where they kill. That's their sacrificial altar. Their sacrificial altar is that place known today as Israel. That's why to this day it is sacrificing that goes on there. That's why to this day the people who claim to be the holiest and the chosen, what they keep developing and creating is weapons of war. Constantly progressing, evolving, or devolving their knowledge to create better and better human killing devices. They are torturers, they are terrorists, because they kill. And that's why throughout time, they are being tracked down, they are being hounded down. It's continuously coming back to them, like karma. And when you identify that, maybe this is why this is, well, not that, but like you identify, maybe this is why you've been experienced different things in your life. No, that's not why. You know what? When somebody comes and steps on your throat and keeps you down and molests and rapes and kidnaps and murders you and everything, it's going to be very hard to walk through this world. It's going to be very hard to appreciate the world. It's going to be and when they prevent you from living, then everything is going to seem like the world's coming down on me. It's true what you're saying, that these things are happening, but to understand why they have happened. To have the complete story. When we have the complete story, this is where we can sort out in our minds what that event is, what it truly is. Because if you're there, not if you're there, I mean where you're at, if this is here, you're looking at that, I'm looking at the other side. There is only one truth, it's this whole thing. But what you're seeing, of course, is that one side. But if the whole truth was there, then you can navigate the whole truth. You will know the reality of that thing that is in between us, but you can only see the one side that is facing you. Now this is, again, we go back to the smoke and mirrors of religion. It has created the lie and then projected the lie into you. It's intrinsicated into you. Like it's almost a part of our DNA, because if we keep saying something that's not true, like in the non-native education, if we keep saying Europe and Asia are two different continents, then after a while, that's what will be in our head, in our being. So we will believe a lie. Because today, if in school, I don't know what the young ones are learning, but if they are talking about continents in geography or whatever, they're being taught that Europe and Asia are two separate continents. So after a while, as you learn this in residential schools, as it was intrinsicated into you, it's not the truth, it is a lie. The lie becomes what we believe. Like what we talked about earlier about powwows. So there is a lot of things here in what you said that is, of course, it is true from within your story on your side of the continent, but it is through a filter. You're looking at it through a filter. And the filter is the world of lies that the non-native brought, which they rammed into your head in residential schools, which they rammed into your parents' heads, which they rammed into your children's heads, and eventually it's what we come to know. This is indeed how it is. We become ourselves the lie. Like we said earlier about powwow, we now ourselves are the powwow. So we have become the lie. Anyways, the many things in your story, I see the direct parallels in our story and universal story. But everybody universal has been distorted through the lie of male dominant religion. And so their stories are true, but they are turned backwards inside out. So it's like, yeah, you're still wearing your jacket, but your jacket is inside out. And anybody that is looking at you, except you can't see it, it's inside out. Anybody that's looking at you might say, your jacket's inside out. How come you're wearing your jacket inside out? But the person who's wearing it, they believe it to be the right way, and they're comfortable with it because it is rooted in their own, and you identify that what they're doing today, not just today, they've been doing it for a long time. They had to incorporate our things into the practice of their religion as it's being put into us, because our things is what is familiar to us. So it's like this. The man has been raping the woman completely. And so the man is ugly. And so what the man has done is he wears a mask, a false face. Not true. So that to the woman who's getting raped, it becomes more acceptable. Because he's not as ugly. And this is where, in fact, where the world is today. Where I won't say fact, where I believe the world is today, because like I said yesterday, I believe, I don't know if this is true, only women of the world can tell me this. I believe that women have reached that stage of the fed upness of being sick and tired of being raped, being sick and tired, even if that guy is wearing that false face that to make him look not as ugly. I believe that the women have had enough now, that they've reached their limit, that they are ready to snap. And so as the rapist becomes aware that this is the stage that the women are getting to, the rapist then has to make adjustments because he wants to keep raping. He's gonna keep raping. He has to make adjustments to what he realizes the women are now going through. So if we look on things of almost in all things, I like to use scales because it's easy to understand. If we look on a scale of 1 to 10, if the rapist has to use whatever techniques from 1 to 10 to rape a woman, well, in the beginnings, he'll have to use just step 1. As she fights and she gets more aggressive against him, he'll have to go to step 2, step 3, step 4. And so, after a period of time, he may go all the way to step 10, but then after a period of time, he's going to go all the way back down to step 1 because the women become compliant. They become at ease with it after a period of time. This is the religification because he uses your own images while he is raping you. And so it becomes acceptable to the women to a certain degree. So after a period of time, he is just moving right along at a very easy pace, only on step 1, on that level of 1 to 10, which is where we are. Where the women of the world, without realizing, and the people of the world, without realizing, are no longer in their identity. They're in an identity crisis. And from that identity crisis, which is a false identity interjected into them, they move from that belief. And they believe from that belief that has been created for them. And this is where we will find, since they are using our things in their ceremony, this is where we will find the truth of that our ceremony has been distorted. The ceremony that we're holding in our hand, that we believe is ours, such as powwow. You know, when people believe their powwow, then the rapist has succeeded, like you said, like with this document, about how what the government had done to your people on that side of the country. When we have this whole big lot of things to complete the picture, we will then understand a lot more clearly of, for instance, that guy they called Jesus. For myself, I believed in him that he existed. But I don't believe in him the way the rest of the world believes in him. Because as far as, let's say, a prophet or a savior or whatever, I could identify that he was mediocre at best. Because there is a lot of things in their own story which they tell of him that I know in my life I would not have accepted. And therefore I know that he, if it was true, that if he was the guy that they say he was, that he would not have accepted also. He was just a guy, that's all. Who made him the Son of God is the people who killed him. They made him the Son of God to be the example to all people who believe in God. And don't forget, they adopted his, not religion, they adopted his name and put it in their religion to spread the lie around the world, because the reality of Christianity and Catholicism today in the structure of the church has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Nothing at all. The whole structure of it is actually against everything that guy Jesus Christ was fighting against. Now, if we look at any guy, you know, let's look at a man working in any union. You know, sometimes a man working in a union, there's something that is compels that man to go stand in the street with a protest sign. That's what Jesus Christ was. That's all he was. He wasn't anything more. He wasn't anything less. He was a man that could not put up with or accept what the insanity was of the day. And because of that, that's where, again, they killed him, making him the Son of God, establishing him as the example for everyone else to follow. And think of this. If your son was killed by a gun, are you going to wear a symbol of a gun around your neck? If your son was shot with a gun and shot and killed with a gun, what mother would have a symbol of a gun hanging around her neck? That would not make any sense. Not at all. But yet this is what they say is Jesus Christ's religion. And that represents him. Let's ask Jesus Christ. If that's his symbol to be on the cross, if he accepts that being the symbol to anybody that wants to follow him, I think we all know what Jesus Christ's answer would be. No. If somebody comes and kills me, knowing that, think of this, all this stuff that's here, you could say this is my bundle. Somebody comes and runs over my bundle with a steamroller. Are you gonna then, if you're following in my path, following my bundle, are you then gonna wear a symbol of a steamroller around your chest? Of course not. Common sense here is very easy to utilize and very easy to determine. This is the reason why what happened yesterday, or the day before, I forget now when it was. We asked a question to be answered, and it was a redundant question. But that redundant question goes to our core. Are you prepared to defend creation? So, what's in creation? All the wrongs that have been done is what has to be corrected and defended. And so let's just look at Jesus Christ. Now, defend. Are you prepared to defend him? That guy that was murdered. Now, if you are prepared to defend him, then you must confront these things, and you, the current day person who is perpetuating the wrongs that were committed against him, and then taken as let's see, what is that? A manifesto. That's what Catholicism is. It's a manifesto. Just the same way that Hitler had a manifesto. Anyways, they created a manifesto after killing him. And they follow that manifesto to a T up until this day. And that manifesto is if they started off killing him, that means they're going to kill off anybody who would think like him. The fact that they're not killing off the people today means that they are not thinking like him. But they have tricked the people through their smoke and mirrors to believe that they are thinking like him. Like you said, it didn't make sense to you. They walk 8 miles every Sunday to go to church, and then like you said, but then they go and they drink. Because to you, from that religion, that is identified as contradiction. For you, you see it as a contradiction. The only reason why it's a contradiction because what they interjected into you, where you have a conscience, where you have common sense, they interject a religion that conflicts with conscience and common sense. And so that's the only reason why you see your grandparents drinking as being a contradiction. Whereas anybody else's grandparents, they could drink and it won't be a contradiction. Only because of religion. Because you can see the contradictions in religion. So as we go on, the more truths we find, this is where we said, we have to be brave as our ancestors, brave to confront all lies, brave enough to confront all truths, to prove everything what we believe is true, prove it to be wrong. And again, when you can't prove it to be wrong, in every effort that you utilize, every bit of information to establish it as wrong, and you can't, then it's those things that confirm it to be true. So we can very easily take away from us as humans all the lies. We can very easily do that. But the world must be brave. Take off all the lies. If you go to the doctor and you have cancer, you're not going to ask the doctor, remove 98% of my cancer, please, and leave the other 2%. No. You're going to ask the doctor, remove 100% of my cancer. Now, what if the cancer was in your eyes? And you had to take out your eyes. Would you still want 100% of the cancer moved out, taken out?
Yes.
Of course you would. You would know that you would have to sacrifice your eyesight if you want to continue living. So there's a lot of things we must be very brave to confront in ourselves and in time, in history. And this is what we are here to do. We are here to do this together. And when we do this, we will remind ourselves of things that we think we have forgotten about our past. And all of a sudden, we will find out that humans, as scattered as they are in their thoughts and their beliefs, we will be able to pull ourselves together to one mind. And that is the job of the well.